Okay, good morning and good afternoon, everyone, wherever you are in the world. My name is Alex Wong. I am the Director of Marketing here at SmartSimple, and I'm very proud to bring to you our November Upgrade webinar. We've got some really cool and exciting things to share with you this time around, and hopefully you will find it interesting and exciting for the things that are coming up. So, just a couple of quick housekeeping items as reminders. We are recording this webinar, so if you're busy writing notes and you miss something that we do talk about or say, we will send the recording out. We will actually upload it to YouTube as well, so you can have access to the recordings from there and catch up on any information you may have missed. The other thing is if you have any questions, we do have a Q&A button on the Zoom panel. If you have a question, feel free to pop your question into there, and we'll be sure to address that before the end of the webinar. The other option is there's also a chat box as well, so if you want to enter your question through the chat box, you can also do that. Now, for right beyond what we talk about today, we always have the upgrade release notes in our wiki. So you see the link right here for the wiki page itself. So if you're looking for more detailed information, that would be the place for you to go. But without further ado, I do want to introduce our speaker for today. We've got Mark Bridger, our UI UX lead, and he will take you through the key, detailed, and exciting new features and enhancements of this coming upgrade. Mark?
Sure. Hello, everybody. Good morning to those of you this morning, and afternoon for the rest. I'm just going to share my screen here. All right. As Alex mentioned, I'm on wiki.smartsimple.com. Hopefully everyone can hear me. If not, please speak up in the chat and let us know.
Can everyone see Mark's screen now? He should have his page is the wiki page. Just want to make sure everyone can see that. Actually, we're showing my screen.
All right, perfect. Yep.
Yeah, okay, we're good.
Thank you.
All right.
So without further ado, if you come here and you go to the upgrades, also while I'm here, I'm always plugging the user interface area because that's my favorite area. But if I come to upgrades, this is what I'm going to talk about today, the November 2019 upgrade. And I'm going to use this as a basis point, and then I'm going to show you all the different things that are in this upgrade. Okay. If you have questions, like Alex said, put them in the QA or in the chat, and we will do that at the end. So I'm going to go through all this stuff so everyone can see it, and then we'll do the question and answer once I've gone through that, so anyone who wants to leave can leave at that point. First thing to note is your servers are upgraded based on your hosting. So that's all listed here in case you want to know when your servers are upgraded, and the backups are always upgraded at least 2 weeks prior to that upgrade date. The other thing to note is that starting in 2020, so after this upgrade, we're going to have 3 upgrades a year instead of 4. So it'll be 3 upgrades now. That'll help us do some bigger and better things. So just be aware of that. The dates are all listed here, so you always know when your servers will be upgraded. And I do encourage everyone to go on their backups if time permits and just try it out. And you can see these features before they actually go live. The other thing I'd like to highlight here is the upgrade video. This is a nice 5 to 6 minute video intended at administrators just to show them what changes, particularly around the UI, are going to happen, and just highlight some new features that should make your life a little easier. So I do recommend that if you haven't watched it, you give that some of your attention. For any clients that are still using the classic interface, this upgrade, we're moving pages over into the Arcadia interface. So up here is the classic administrator interface. This is the one that we had when I started here. And then we moved to the Arcadia one. And we're doing this for better accessibility and usability. So if you were using a classic portal or a classic interface, you will see that some of the pages will be switched over into Arcadia. And so we're deprecating the usage of classic, or the classic interface. So the next thing is the question set builder, which allows you to make a set of questions instead of making all these custom fields, to make a set of questions for a specific call, and then it surfaces that on the application. in there, we're just standardizing the way the number field works. So typically everywhere else in the system, you have a number field and then you have a precision to adjust it. When the question set builder came out, it had a decimal and an integer option. So we've just standardized that so it works the same way as everywhere else. CAPTCHA. So for those who don't know about CAPTCHA, it's a completely automated public Turing test to tell computers and humans apart. And let me show you what that looks like real quick on my QA instance. So I'm going to fail logging in a couple times here, and then I can see here's my Google reCAPTCHA. So this is the standard CAPTCHA that we give all of our clients if they choose to enable it, and it is Google reCAPTCHA. All right. So the problem with this is if you have users in, say, China, China's doesn't allow their users to go out to the Google servers. So in that kind of a scenario, you can't use the Google reCAPTCHA. So for those people, and I'll show you in a second, oops, back to the CAPTCHA. Let's see. All right, perfect. Log in. So for those users in countries like China, previously we had an option where you could, I'm going to show you this right now. So I go to menu icon, I'm going to go to security, and then I scroll down here. And here's where the CAPTCHA settings are. So there's 3 CAPTCHA settings: enabled, which turns on the CAPTCHA everywhere in the system; disabled, which will turn it off everywhere; and inherit. And what inherit does is it means on the login page, the password resets, places like that, it's going to automatically come on. But in places like the sign-up pages and the template pages, you have the option to turn it on or off. So I've chosen to enable it, so I'm using it everywhere. And then previously, I would have said, don't show it in China because they won't be able to communicate with the Google servers anyway, and that way it will prevent them from using the system. But in this upgrade, we added an alternate service. So this is a local service in your instance. It's kind of a standardized one, very basic, but it allows you to have CAPTCHA in those countries that aren't allowed to communicate out. So you can always turn that on, and it's simply done by picking the country you want and save. So that's the Google CAPTCHA, and so we've added an older, more basic version of CAPTCHA for users who cannot communicate with the Google servers because of political reasons or usually political, government related. All right, so let's go talk about list views, because list views are much more exciting. All right. So on list views, I've got a list view here, and I'm going to go to edit my list view. So here's my list view. Now we've always been able to have filters on list views, but this upgrade, we allowed you to add multiple filters to a list view. So for example, and that's, I just click like this, I could have one filter for all the applications I'm the owner of, one for all the applications maybe I'm a co-applicant on, and maybe another for all the applications related to my organization. So then these become an OR. So the first filter, second filter, or third filter, if any of these criteria are true, then it will show up. So it's an OR, not an AND, that's the important part. And also, then when I click on the search, you can actually see I've got 3 active filters on this list view now. So hopefully this will help you so that you don't have to make so many list views, or you still always have the advanced search, but it hopefully will help you do more complex filtering and a little easier and reuse your filters in different places. All right. The other cool thing about list views, and I go back into the list view builder here. So when I come to the columns, I can add columns here with this button, but sometimes I want to find a field, and I may have a lot of fields. I know some clients have many, many custom fields. So now we've added the search, so I can say, okay, show me the amount field, or show me, I can do this, the ID, or I can say, oh, I want to see all the text fields, or all the, say, single line text fields. So again, it's really easy to do the search now, to find those fields, and then I can add them. If you haven't done this before, you can add more than one thing into a column here. I can take things off the column, and this came with last upgrade where we show which column is actually, what data is being shown in each column as well. I can see the IDs right there. So that's an exciting enhancement, make your life a little easier finding these custom fields to add to your list views. So if you didn't notice already, when I went to my list views, we have this button here which allows me to jump right to how to configure or change the list view I'm looking at. So this was always available, when it first came out, it was available level 1s and I believe level 2s, but we've extended this and put it in more areas. So for example now, you're going to see it on the consumer provider, but also even on things like the contacts and the organizations, you're going to be able to modify those right from there. So we've just extended that to more areas to make your life a little easier. So now what I'm going to do is I want to show you the portal search. So for role-based portals, or like people like your applicants may have a role-based portal. We've always had a search, but this upgrade we gave it a little bit of love. So I'm going to click the menu icon, go to roles and permissions, security, user roles, and I believe this role I set it up on, and I'm going to go to portal, and now I'm in the portal builder here, yes. And I'm just going to preview it to show you right here. So here I have the search. So this is how the revised search looks now. You can see it's its own box here. I can minimize it if I choose. And some of the things I can do in here, instead of just typing the text I want, I can, for example, pick, okay, I only want to see status, under review, and revisions requested. So I can make those choices. I can also pick things like start date, so I want to see anything after this date. So it's a lot like the regular search we have in the other system, but typically when you have a role-based portal, this search was a little more limited. So let me show you how I set this up. So I'm going to come in here. So I have a main menu link called search, and I've got a list view section. When I go into the list view section, down here at the bottom, so I have to toggle on show search panel, and then people in this role-based portal will be able to, at this point, search. And then I have to pick what do I want them to search. So it's simply adding the fields, like I've done here, and you pick which field you want them to be able to search on. So the field has to be in their list view, but if it's in their list view, you can pick that field and you can surface it and say, I want people to be able to search on this. And then you type the caption you want here, and you have some options. So for the date, for example, is it on or after? Is it on or before? Is it on? So you can use that type of criteria to make this search. All right. If you've ever worked with workflows, if you're an administrator who works with workflows quite a bit, sometimes it can be a little tricky to figure out which workflows are connected with which, and how they're linked together. So this upgrade, to make your life a little easier again, we've added a new tab to workflows. So here I have a workflow, and you'll see that here's the new tab called Workflow Connections. So in this Workflow Connections, actually I'm going to do a different one. This one. I've got this workflow here, and I do Workflow Connections. So in this Workflow Connection, I can see that there's another workflow that feeds into this workflow. So one workflow is going to happen, and then it's going to have this connector, which is going to come into this workflow, and then something will happen here. And I can also see, attached this workflow is going to go out into another workflow. So this gives you a little bit easier to see how these workflows are connected and the linkages between workflows. All right. So now we're going to go talk about reports for a little bit. So here I've got a report. And yes. All right. One of the things we've added to the reports is, let's say I've scheduled a report to happen. Well, typically I would have had to wait for those reports, but now what we've done is we've added this ad hoc button. So if I have a report that I want to run, I can go on to maybe the backup or one of my dev instances, and I can just test it out and see what it's going to be. I don't have to wait for that scheduled report to run. I can just test it right now on any of my instances and see what the result is. So again, that's going to help you when you're setting up reports. The same thing with autoloaders. So I'm on an autoloader. I'm going to come in here, and If my connection type is FTP, I can test the import. So again, maybe I'm on the backup or maybe I'm on a dev instance and I want to just test this out. I don't want to do it on my live. I can test it right away just using these new settings. So we've got some new ways to test that out for helping you configure. Now, if you've ever had a problem with a report, so you made a report and somebody changed it and you're like, oh, what did they do? How do I restore this back? We put a new enhancement in here for you as well. So if you go to reports, and I'm going to open my report, we've added a history on the reports now. So there's all these different settings within the reports when you set these up. If I go into the update history, I can now see who's changed this report, and I can go into the report to see what the settings were previously. So if somebody came in and modified my report and changed it some way, I can go back and see what they've done, and I can theoretically revert it as well. The only thing that is not covered in this is the charts. I believe the settings for the charts are not covered in the report history, but the rest of the settings all are. Ooh, there's another fun one. So just like that for the security matrix, so I'm going to go global settings. Yes. So security matrix. Again, I've got a change history here, so I can see what the changes are. And, oh, sorry, UTA security matrix. My apologies. So if I go submission manager, and I come into here, and I go into security, my security matrix for this UTA, which is an application. In this case, it's my grants. I can see here's all the permissions that I've set, and again, I now have a change history. I can see who's made changes to this, and if I go into it, I can see exactly what the settings were previously. So again, this helps you see who's been changing your permissioning around, who can see what, and you can theoretically revert it back if need be. All right, so there's some minor things now. When I talk about Smart Check. So Smart Check, for those people who don't know, is the way we validate or we check different things within the system. So for example, I'm going to create a new grant here, and I'm going to try and submit it without filling it in, and the Smart Check validation will run, and it gives me a message. Now previously, this message said, please correct the following errors, but we've changed that message to say submission failed due to the following. That's simply because, let's say if this is an eligibility questionnaire where someone says, are you a U.S. citizen? And they say no, and then we say you're not eligible. We don't want to tell them to correct the following errors because that would be perjury, right? So there's scenarios where we don't want them to change their answers, but they still can't submit, or where that previous message just wasn't appropriate. One thing to note about Smart Check, if you weren't aware, is you can actually click on these, and it will take you right to the desired field, so you can fix that problem. And if these error messages cover something that you need to see, you can close the error messages as well. So that's the Smart Check validation. We just changed the error message, so just be aware of that. All right, then there's the tab bar mode. So this is one of my favorite things. I think a lot of people approached me and said that they really enjoyed the tab bar. For those of you who don't know the tab bar, let me show you first the tab bar. I go to my user profile, user menu, and I hit enable tab bar, and this is going to put this tab bar at the bottom here. Then I can say new tabs, and I can go anywhere in the system. So maybe I'm going to open up a level 1. Maybe I'm going to go to my profile. Maybe go to an organization. Let's just go to an organization. Sure. So I have all these things, and now I can work with them independently. So it's really a productivity feature that allows me to grab any pieces of the system I want to work with, and I can interact with them all together. Now, this was available in the last upgrade, but it was more of it was a beta release at that point. So we knew there were some areas that wasn't going to work very well, or there was needed some polish. And then, of course, this upgrade We did that, and it now works much better in a lot of different areas and with a lot of different interactions. One of the other features of this is the multitask, so I can at any time see my tabs 2 up, and I can navigate between them. I can also now move things around, so I can change the order of these items, and I can do things like open up my split screens, and my modal windows will open up inside them. So there's a whole bunch of love that we just gave this new feature. So let me just, now if you haven't turned it on yet, you can see I can enable it and disable it through your user menu, but there's one other setting for turning this on, and I'll just show you that quickly because not everyone's aware. If I go to, I believe it's global settings, public security, system feature permissions, and if I come down here, let me see, where's my tab bar? Tab bar access, there we go. So tab bar access is here, same with enable smart cards. And there's a lot of other features that are enabled here. One thing that we're going to be doing also in a future upgrade, I'll just give you a sneak peek, is we're going to actually have a feature page within the system that says, hey, here's all the features we recommend and how to turn them on quickly and easily, just to make that a little easier for you guys. I know when we were at Elevate, a few people weren't aware of some of the features we have or how to turn them on. So we're going to put that in here for system admin so you can quickly see what features you're using, and if you're not using them, why you might want to use them, and how to turn them on quickly. So that, keep your eyes peeled for that one. It's going to be in a future upgrade. But that's how you turn on the tab bar feature. Another thing we did is we added a newer icon library. So we now have a choice of thousands of icons, more than we used to have. But also we did make a couple changes. These icons are a little bit bigger. The change language is also a different icon now, and the home is now a different icon. So just be aware of those. And these did increase a little bit in size, more for accessibility and usability. So let me show you how you pick the icons using the new icon picker. So I'm going to go to a portal shortcut just to show you how that functionality works. But it works the same way throughout the system. So I come in here, I'm going to go to shortcuts, and I come to brands. Okay, and this shortcut I've chosen as icon, so now I have shortcuts to pick from. So previously there was one drop down that you picked from. Excuse me. Now you have two. So first you have to pick the style. So essentially what that means is we have lots of these icons, but they also come in different, I guess, flavors or styles, if you will. So do you want it with a regular line? Do you want the lines to be very light? Do you want it to be solid or filled in? And then we've also got one for brands like Twitter and Facebook and like company logos. All right, so I'd pick brands here. And then what I do is I can pick from this list, but I can also search. So if I want to change Facebook, there's Facebook, and I just pick the one that I want. And I can clear it with this X here if I want no icon. So that's how the way the icon picker works now. One thing to note about this is if you had chosen icons from the previous sets, they all still work. You don't have to do anything with those. They all will work. And if there's the only thing to note is that what you may see here is it'll say deprecated on it because we do want you to switch them over whenever you get a chance, but it will continue to work. Once you do switch it over, you won't be able to switch back to any of the older icon sets. So it's just something to note. If you leave it as is, it'll all work fine. If you change it, you'll have to pick from the new set. And you will see a deprecated thing here. But it doesn't mean it won't work. It just means that we want to encourage you to move to the newer set. So next I want to show you, again, I'm going to show you the role-based portal. And on this role-based portal, I want to show you that what we've done, so I'm previewing the portal again, and I just want to highlight that we've changed the pagination on list views and portals now. So previously, you have a preset number here, and you would move back and forth with these navigation arrows. Now in this upgrade, our applicants using the portals, they can click on this, and you can change it. So the applicant themselves or the user themselves can come in and they can change how many records they want to see per page. So I can say I want 100, I want to see all the records all at once. I don't have to page through if I don't want to. And I can also jump, if I had more pages here, I could jump to a specific page of my list view. So you can now see all your records where previously all at once, where previously you had to use the paging, and you have control over how much you want to see per page. All right, just another thing just to note for our system admins. I'm going to Global Settings Security, and if I scroll down here, this section here called Data Management Policies is where people set up their categories and their data policies around those categories. So this is for things like data retention. So, what data do you want to purge at such and such a time? Or maybe it's about, I want to mask some of this data, so I want people's SIN numbers to have stars on them for these roles, etc. So that is all set up here. And this used to be called data categories. It's now been changed to field sets, and there may be a few other terminology changes in here. So I just want you to be aware of those changes that happened in this upgrade. But that's where that is done. All right. So now the next thing is if you use multiple languages, as many of our clients do, and there are lots of ways of importing those language translations, but I'm going to go to the custom fields just as an example. So I'm going to Submission Manager here, which is my UTA, Configuration Manager. I'm going to go to my level 1, which in this case is a grant, and I go to Custom Fields. Now, if I go to any of these custom fields here, I'm just going to pick one. Whatever, I'll take this guy. All right. Previously, I would enter the translations for this field right here if I wanted to do it at the field level. So there used to be a button here, we'll call it Caption. We've now moved that up here. So now if I click on this, I can see here are the things I can translate. Now I don't have any translations here, but if I did, up there it would say current translations and then create new. I would just click one of these, I would enter my translation, and then when my user switches languages, that's what they will see. They'll see that language. We moved this up here because some places in the system didn't have a caption, so it was very inconsistent, whether it was near the caption or if there's no caption, it would be up at the top. So we tried to make it more consistent and put it up here. The other thing to note is that icon did change. And for those of you who don't know what it's like changing languages, this is the language change here. And so let me go and show you that in action. So I'll go to Global Settings. And if I go to Global Settings and I change it to, let's say, French Canadian, all right, and I'm going to go back to the Global Settings. And you'll notice that that menu, all the settings were now in French. You can see all of these are in French. So if I wanted to configure in French, I can change that. Again, if my users are switching over to French, they're going to see all my captions in French as opposed to in English. So that's how that works. There are a number of languages that we support by default, that we have all these translations in the system, such as French and Spanish, I believe Danish, and I believe this upgrade we also added Japanese. So some of those already have predefined translations, but if you're adding your own custom fields, then of course you'll have to add the translations for those fields and the things that you're adding to the system. But the base things in the system will already get translated. So there we are. Yes, baseline language translation in Japanese is now there. We simplified the audits for the report builder. All right, I'm going to show you the privacy and security policies now. So as soon as the first time I log into the system, for all my users, I get people to accept my privacy and security policies. So that may be however I'm going to use their data, what data we're going to collect, all those types of things. We collect that information and we let people know in advance before we do that. So when they come into the system, the first thing they do is get this page that sees my policies, and they can't actually do anything unless they accept it. If they don't accept it, they get out of the system, they can't use the system. Now that is set up, I'll show you global settings, security, privacy and security policies. So here I have a policy for the default country, so that's pre-login if I don't know what country they're coming from. They use that policy. Once they're logged in, If I know the country, then I will use this policy. And if I look at this policy here, I have a setting here for enforced user acceptance. So what I can do is I can say, oh, at any time I want, I can say I want everyone to accept my policy again. Maybe I made a change to it, and I can set a date, and they have to then accept it. Once they accept it, here's the policy. I'll just show you my sample policy. So this is that's the beginning of it, and then I have another policy here, and you can have multiple policies, and you can pick who has to accept these. Your user acceptance is there. The other thing that it does, which is an improvement to this one, is now we've added this search, so I can easily search the users. So I can say, if I want to type in Mark, or I can search my user ID, and I can see, oh, Mark acknowledged these policies on this date. So for example, I'm going to check out this one here, and I can see here's the full policy is here. It says, oh, this gentleman accepted this policy. He did it on this date at this time. This is his user name or number. In case he changes his name, we still have the user number here. That's his language, and I believe his country, and then this is the policy number. And so that's, you have a record of that forever, that you've got this PDF that says, okay, this user came in and accepted our policies. They've allowed us to use their data, and they are aware of how we're using their data in their system. So that's here, and that's the searches. So as I said, I could have searched, I could have searched, for myself, and I can see, oh, yeah. So I've accepted the policy. I accepted this policy and version 2 of this policy, and I accepted this policy, version 1 of that policy. All right. And if I go back to security, I can see here's the policy ID, and of course, every time I change that, it'll get a new version number automatically there. Okay. Okay. Here's another good one. So, for those of you who are unaware, we have something we call emulation mode. So, I can go to any user in the system. Maybe I'll do that right now just to show you. I can go to any user in the system that is, let me go here instead. Okay, so I can go to this user, for example, and I can emulate their session. So I can go in as them. So here I am, and I can see what they see when they log in. Now, if I do that, which is really helpful for troubleshooting, I'm going to end the session, go back to my session. Okay, if I do that and I make a change in there, which I can do, what we've done is we've added, I'm just going to show you right now. I'm going to go to configuration mode here. And let's see, I've got this field here, oops, sorry, that has a history on it. So what we can do is if I've emulated that person and made the change on their behalf, we have added this column now here which says emulated by. So it shows that, okay, although I emulated it as this user, it was actually me as a system admin coming in and making that change. So we're recording that, and that's reportable. That's easy to find because it wasn't always obvious if the person had done it through emulation or if it was the actual user. So that is now there on all those places in the change history. And I don't know if everyone knows about that, but on any field you want, you can enable this change history, which let me just show you how that's done. So you have an audit history of who changed that field, when they changed it. So there's this toggle right here, track changes, and if I toggle that on, then changes will be tracked for that field. You also have to set permission as to who can see track changes, and then when I do track the changes, I can see who's updated the field, what the old value was and the new value was, who changed that. Now, you wouldn't want to turn this on for all your fields because it's going to collect a lot of data, but if there's specific fields that are really important to you, like the status changes, and you want to see that history, feel free to turn that on. All right. I believe it was the last upgrade or the upgrade before that, we made some updates to the association view. So previously here, you would have a basic search box where I could type something in. I'd have a drop down where I could pick the role and then a plus button. But it was very kind of restrictive. So this is for attaching a user to a record. So maybe I want to attach an internal person or a co-applicant to an existing grant. So now with the new association entry, it looks like this. Like I said, I hit the add button and it brings me up here. So now I pick, how do I want to associate this person? Well, I want them to be an applicant. And then I can pick whoever I want. I can drop them down here, and if I hit submit, it will attach that user as in that role towards that object. Now, one of the big benefits of this is I now have a robust search here where I can say, well, I only want to see applicants, or I only want to see people in a specific status, or maybe I want to use the advanced search because I have some other criteria I want to use that's very complex, which you didn't have any of those options before. So this is the new association view where we can add people. We highly recommend that you adopt it if you have not already. I believe it's getting rolled out to everyone relatively soon, if it has not already. So let's talk about the on-demand stuff now. Oh, so for those who've never used the autocomplete, so here I've got, this is an autocomplete field where I'm asking, just as a sample, what are people's favorite colors? So you just start typing, and you can pick fields, and these are from a predefined list. So let me go in the back and show you how this works. So this is the lookup autocomplete options, and I've predefined some options that I want them to choose from, and so when they start typing, these will just pop up and they can pick what they want. Now, for this one, normally you might only pick one, but I've chosen that I want them to be able to pick multiple options from my predefined list. So I've enabled it right here, enable multiple select. And when I do that, we have two new options in this upgrade. I can specify the minimum number of options and the maximum number of options. So if I had a predefined list and I say, hey, you got to pick 3 of these 5, then I can specify here. Or maybe you can pick 1 to 3. So we've added these options in here, and then when I try and submit, the Smart Check validation will kick in and say, hey, sorry, you have to pick exactly 2 for this field. And you don't have to do any complex configuration to do that. So that's a new setting on the autocomplete. All right, so that takes us to our sign-up pages. Not an upgrade goes by where we don't touch the sign-up pages in some way. And this time we've enhanced it for doing improved matching. So sometimes what happens is you have a lot of users who are trying to sign up, and maybe they already have an organization in the system. So instead of creating a brand new organization, we've enabled an option where you can say, hey, there's already an existing organization with a name similar to this. Do you want to just attach yourself underneath, or do you really want to create a new organization? So let me show you how that works. So here I've got an organization sign-up page, and on the organization sign-up page, let me show you it first, actually. Let me show you it first. Okay, so here I've got the organization sign-up page, and I'm going to enter my organization's name, and I'm just going to enter the word sample. And down here, I'm just going to put some fake data for my user information. Okay. And of course, I'll check my CAPTCHA, and then I will say submit. And so what happens now, if I turn on these settings, is it says, oh, I entered sample as my organization name. There is another organization in the system that's already called sample. So now I can choose, do I want to, if I click this and hit select, it will populate my user underneath that organization. Or if I say create new, it will use the information that I entered here to create this organization as new. So I don't have to send them. So if I had entered information here, it would use this information to create it as a new organization. So now I don't have to say, okay, check to see if you exist and then sign me up under them, or then I'd redirect them to another sign-up page. No, now I can just do it right here. I can create the organization and or attach myself underneath an existing organization. So now let me show you how I did that. So this is an organization signup page. I've chosen that it has a user signup attached to it, and I chose my user signup. And when I do that, I get a couple new options down here. And this last option is the one I chose, which is I'm allowing people to create a new organization, and if a matching organization exists, show them what matching organizations exist, and then that way they can choose either that or they can create new. Now you also have two options over how you want to match. So I picked contains matching. So for example, I said sample. So anything with the word sample in it was going to show up. But I could have also done an exact match. So if I said sample incorporated with a period, someone has to type in exactly sample incorporated with a period. Otherwise, they won't see it. The other thing here is, of course, you may not want to expose all the organizations that are registered in your system. So you can use categories, organization categories, which is a way we group organizations together and control what they can see and do. You can use that to specify which ones can be seen from the sign-up page. Because obviously, in some verticals, you're not going to want people to see maybe who you're giving money to or other information about these organizations. There's also a new duplicate restriction message here. So if you pick this option, that message, you can add it here and update it because that process is a little different with that message. And otherwise, it is exactly the same as your regular organization sign-up page. Oh, one other thing, while I'm looking at sign-up pages, we added Smart Check validation to sign-up pages. So as you know, Smart Check validation can check all sorts of things and allows you to do more robust validation instead of just at one specific field. Maybe I want to compare one field with another field. Maybe I want to make sure there's something else that's happening, that they're the right country and something else. You can do those complex validations now and attach them to the sign-up page, just like you can attach workflows and other objects. So Smart Check is now available on sign-up pages. So let's go look at the proximity searching. So we've added proximity searching. We've always had mapping with our list views. But let me show you what we've done now. So here I've got a map, and this is a map of my level ones. And what we've done is here I've got a filter. Based on the person or customer, I can search based on proximity. So the idea here is, let's say I want New York, 500 miles in New York, and I can see all the users, all the persons and customers within 500 miles of New York. And it also gives me the distance here. And of course, it's miles if I'm in the U.S. It'll be kilometers for people outside of the U.S. And of course, what I can also do is I can click into one of these and see more details about the organization of this grant, the person, the customer. I can even edit that person and I can jump back to the map. Currently, this works for as I said, the person and the customer field, but we're going to expand that to the level ones and put addresses on the level twos. And the real, one of the use cases I think would be very valuable for people in this is, let's say I have an event or something happening near me. So sure, I can find all the people near me, or I can find all the organizations near me, because maybe I'm visiting, but also if I want to volunteer, let's say, I could find all the locations closest to me within a certain radius, and then that way I can go and apply for those or volunteer at those. So this is a cool new feature that enables us to refine our searches to only show things in a close proximity to where I am located. And of course, I can change where I'm located here or wherever I desire. All right, let's talk about quick assign. So I'll go back. So I think in the last previous upgrade webinar or before that, I talked a little about quick assign. So quick assign is one of those things that we can do here. So we'll go back and show you because I went a little quick. So I'm on my level 1 list view here. I've got this button called quick assign. And with quick assign, again, I can search all the users I want, and I can pick what role I want to give them. And so the idea is like, let's say I want to add 5 people, these 4 people as reviewers, and then I can pick a list of applications here, and I can assign those in whatever role I want. So in my case, I want a reviewer. And once I hit continue, I can choose, do I want to assign them 1-to-1? Do I want to assign them 5-to-1? And do I want to randomize it? I have these options for assigning my reviewers to my open applications. So this was always available in your UTAs, but if you have a role-based portal, maybe you have a role-based portal for your employees that wasn't available to them. So we've made that available now. So I'm going to go into a portal right now, and I go to shortcuts. And so what we've done is we've added the ability to put this in a shortcut. So when I'm in that portal, I can open it up and I can use it to assign people. So again, I've chosen an icon here, and I've chosen the shortcut type of URL, and I have the URL to it. Now, I don't expect everyone to remember how to get to these things, and no one would expect you to know how to do that. So what we did is if you have never used it before, we have this thing called the URL lookup. So what this does is it helps you to map to any place in the system that you want to expose through a shortcut. So I click on this, and I say, okay, what do I want to show? Well, I'm interested in my UTA, which is the submission manager, and I want to show quick assignment. So when I hit apply, it'll populate that link for me, and then all I have to do is save, and now I have a shortcut that will go and open up the quick assign for me. So that's a quick and easy way to get quick assigns into your portals. Here you can see it, like quick assign, and boom, there it opens up. All right, that's how I did that. Okay. So with workflow connectors, you've got a new exclude based on record status and type. Let's go see the mixed. All right, let me go show you mixed list views. So if anyone doesn't know what a mixed record list view is, let me open one up for you. So what I've got here, this is what we call a mixed record list view. So this list view has users in it, it has grants in it, and it has organizations in it. It could have level 2s and level 3s in it. You can pull things from all over the system and put it in one list view. Previously, you could only have a list view of one type of thing. So it was users or it was organizations, and so you'd end up having different tabs for different things. But the idea here is I want one to-do list of everything that I need to action. So all my applicants to approve, all my grants to approve, all my organizations to approve, or whatever action I'm going to do. In this upgrade, what we did is we've allowed you to put it into a tab, and now you can get a count. So you didn't have the ability to have a count before. So now I can see that I have 15 action items that I have to do. So we've added that functionality. It's now in tabs. You can now put it in tabs, and now you have a count. And for those of you who have never seen this before, I'm going to show you how we set this up. So here I am. I've got a section, and I put in a section in tabs. That's how I got that tab. But what I really want to show you here is how I made this mixed record type list view. So it's a list view section, and if I scroll down here, for list view settings, I pick the list views I want. So I just say plus, and I pick the list views that I want to show. So I have one list view for my grants, one for my organizations, one for my users. And then, because these are different list views showing different things, we have to define how many columns from these list views are we going to show. Well, I'm going to show the 4 you saw there. I want to show type, name, status, and column. And these list views have to be configured in that order. Once they're configured in that order, I pick my sorting, which would be column 1. And I chose the show record count here, but I could also choose the row clickable. The record count was what I showed you on the tab there. And of course, as we talked about earlier, the show search panel shows you that new search panel where you can pick from predefined lists, and you can have the date picker in there, which is another new thing this upgrade. If you're inviting people to be maybe panelists on your applications, or maybe be a grant reviewer, etc. on your UTA. We've added a little bit of help there. So the invitations, let me just show you. I'm on the level 1 of my UTA here. If I go to invitation template, I can see this invitation template, and this will email someone out and invite them to maybe join as a reviewer or a panelist. We've got a bunch of settings here. The thing that we've added this time is we've added some more permissions around who can see this and how they can interact with it. So just note that we've got some new stuff there with the invitations and new restrictability. Oh, back to the privacy and security policies, which I talked about a few minutes ago. This is when someone logs in, we get them to accept the policies that you've set up, and we make a PDF of it. Okay. We've also just, with this, we've revised the interval. So you can now pick daily and weekly if you needed to, but generally you probably won't want to do this whenever, maybe quarterly or yearly, or whenever it has changed, kind of an ad hoc. But you have those options now. Do keep in mind, if you do it very regularly, you will be generating a lot of PDFs into your system, so best to do it at a larger interval. Oh, okay. So let me come back in here for a second to show you something else. So here I'm in my submission manager, and I've got my level 1s, my level 2s, and my level 3s here. But if I go to my level 3s, if I wanted to, I can have one of my list views show up here as a tab beside this. And we've now extended that functionality to the level 3s. It wasn't on the level 3s before. So if I wanted to show this list view up here, and it was a very specific list view, I'm going to come in, I'm going to edit it, and if I scroll down here, sorry, where am I going now? I forgot. Anyway, we've extended the functionality there. I'll have to put that in my notes or something to have it show up here. I believe it was show as tab. I forget where I put that setting, but it can now show up here. And it's the same way as you previously did the level 1s and 2s. So if I go back into workflows, all right. So I get my workflows, my tasks here, but here I've got the ones that are already run. So this upgrade, we've added some more abilities here to kind of troubleshoot and to figure out when things are run, or maybe I want to see what didn't run or was pending. I can now do a search here, and I can do my common search on things like the status. It'll show me all the ones that were canceled, so I can investigate something. I can search on columns. I can also sort on columns now. So previously, this didn't have that kind of functionality, and we've added it now. So it makes it a little easier to troubleshoot. All right, let's go back to reports for a second. So if you make reports and you export them, so I go to my report again. And let's see. All right, so here's my reports. Sorry. So I've got, this one. There we go. So here I have a report, and I scheduled an export. So I want to export this report as, and maybe I'm putting it onto an SFTP, which is a secure FTP site, and I want to keep a copy of this file. So you've always had the ability to put a username and password in the URL for that SFTP site to authenticate in, but we've added another, a two-factor version of authentication here. So for added security, you can add a private key. So if I say use private key, toggles it on, and then I can attach my private key here. So with your SFTP program, you have a public and a private key. So that way it's I have my username and my password, which are things I know, and then there's my private key, which is something I have. So then you have to also send this, and then the server will match it up and say, okay, now you can present that information. So just another layer of two-factor authentication here for extra security when you're doing SFTP of reports. All right. Variable processor has been expanded for maximum word count. Yeah. Some other things have been done here, the variable processor as well. But I want to show you two more things before I go to question and answer. So first off, just to let you know, we're working on a newer ORCID integration where you can go to ORCID, I can authenticate, and then I should be able to press a button on my profile, and it'll bring all my information from ORCID into the system in a JSON file, where then you can search it and directly assign people to whatever you want, or you even have some visualizations there. That's coming relatively soon. We're working on that. The other thing I want to show you is something that we're working on for a future upgrade. So again, I'm going to go into my user roles. I'm going to go into here, and I'll go my portal. And this is something I've been quite excited about, actually. So what we plan on doing is giving you the ability to edit in line. So here I am previewing a portal as a role-based portal. And I can come in here, I can click on this, and I can start typing. I can start changing it right here. So I don't have to navigate through the portal builder to find where's the section. Eventually we're going to expand it to be able to modify that section as well, not just the text, and upload images is the plan. So we're working on this right now, just to make it a little easier to modify and create portals going forward. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to open up the floor for questions and answers. Hopefully we've got a whole bunch of questions coming, and look forward to see what you guys have to say.
Okay, so we do have several questions. So a couple that through the chat.
Sure.
I don't know how you want to address. Which order you want to address?
Wherever it starts.
We'll start from the top. Starts from right here.
All right.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, up a little bit.
Okay, so I'm going to read out the question, and then I will give you the best answer I can. So, the CAPTCHA option. So the question is, where do you find the CAPTCHA option? I'll just show you that. So we go, as a system administrator, you go to menu icon, global settings, security, and it's right down here. There's the enable, disable, inherit. And then if you want to use the alternate CAPTCHA for some countries, you can choose that. If you did pick inherit, I'll just show you real quick by going to organization sign-up page. Oh, actually, I didn't turn on inherit, but it would be on the organization sign-up page if you wanted to toggle that on or off there. So the next question is, someone was seeing a slide bar instead of arrows on their level 2s. I'm not aware of this, but what I would advise you to do is just contact support and raise a ticket for it, and we'll look into it. I'm not aware of any changes to the level 2's navigation, so like I said, just create a support ticket and we'll look into that. And if you need my help, to just ask the support person to ask Mark to come and assist as well. Oh, the mapping view in the video, sure. Perfect. So let me show you how I did this map. Okay. So we were showing you the level 1 map. Okay. So this is just a list view. All right. So here's the list view, and the way I set up the map is down here on any list view, you just say enable map panel. Once you've enabled the map panel, then you will see the map panel. So let me switch to it right now so you can see. So you build a list view just as you normally would, and then you just say enable map panel, and the list view will render like this. So that's how we do it. Okay. So the next person says they don't have the option for portal search or the ability to add it. Okay, so I'm just going to show you again. If I go to user roles, I'll show you what you should see, and if you don't see it, it's either a permissioning thing or just give a Support a call and they'll help you walk through it. So let's go to, I'm going to go to my employee portal. Okay, and I'm going to go to the portal, my portal builder, and I think I had a search on this one. Oh, actually it was on my applicant. Sorry, my bad. Let me go back. I'm going to go to my applicant role, portal. Okay, yeah. So I have a main menu item called search, and it's a section. In the section, I have a list view. The search is available on the list view type of section. So if your type is list view, then down here you should have a show search panel. Okay, if you don't have that, it's like I have to assume it's a permission thing, but if not, give support a call and let us know. But that's where that setting should be. So if it's a list view type, you should have this toggle down here to list view settings. The mobile app, so the next question is, do we know when the mobile app will be available? The mobile app is available right now. It is available and it can be used. The thing to know about the mobile app is it's meant for microtransactions, and it's another layer of configuration on top of your system. The mobile app is not everything that is in your system available on your phone. If you want to use everything on your mobile device, you can do that right now. The system is very responsive as it is. So if you want all the functionality of the system, you can go ahead and just use that with the system right as it is. If you're looking for something like a microtransaction, like I just want someone to come in on their phone and just approve something and get out, then you can add an extra layer of configuration for the mobile app, and you can download the mobile app and you can use it. I don't know about the pricing, I can't speak to that, but as I said, the mobile app is available and it is usable, but there's a third layer of configuration, because what it'll do is it takes the configuration of your system and then you say, okay, I want X to be exposed in the mobile app, and then I want this extra permissions to be put on top of it. So when I'm in the mobile app, if I don't have permission in the system, I don't see it, but also on top of that, I can add another layer of security above it.
If you are looking for pricing, you can always reach out to your account manager. They'd be able to provide you with that information.
Mm-hmm. But as I said, the system is very responsive. It should work very well on your mobile devices. And if there's a specific area in the system that doesn't work well on a mobile device, again, just contact support, let us know, and we'll make sure we give that area some love.
So this question is related to the privacy policies.
So our question is, could you define which countries apply to a certain policy? If you could define which countries apply to a certain policy. Oh, so right now, let me just go look at it, make sure I understand the question. So privacy and security policies. So right now, you can pick a policy for each country. So for example, if I create a new policy here, I pick which country I want this policy to be defined for, and then which language within that country. So I can have, for example, I don't know, let's say Afghanistan, and English speakers of Afghanistan, I can have one policy for them. I can have another policy for French speakers in Afghanistan. So you can set up policies for every country. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but that's how each policy is defined per country, per language. Now, pre-login, we do have, excuse me one second, pre-login, we do have one called the default country. So, because until someone's logged in, we don't necessarily know what country they are. We could go out and find their IP, but we're really not allowed to do that. So what we use to determine someone's country is what they've set as their country. Because maybe my home country is Canada, but I'm in the States right now. So I could still see my Canadian policy because I'm governed by the policy of where I live and not necessarily the policy of where I'm visiting. So that's why we do it that way. Oh, how do you turn on the new association view? Good question. So I believe it's global settings, security. So I showed you the association view. We're connecting or associating contacts with the level 1 or level 2 organizations. I believe, let me just double check this is where it is. Oh, you know what? Actually, I know where it is. So global settings, I believe it's classic settings. Yeah, so global settings, classic settings. If this is toggled off, use classic association entry view, you will get the new association entry. So once again, for anyone who didn't see that, menu icon, global settings, classic options. If you make sure that use classic association view is turned off, you will get the new association view. And I believe we plan on pushing that down to everybody in a future upgrade as well. So I encourage everyone to try it out, start using it, and let us know if there's anything else in there that really needs enhancing or love for that. Oh, perfect. So the next one is the organization sign-up page with the matching. So I'll show you how that's done again. Now, mind you, obviously your system has to be on the latest upgrade to see this, but if I go into organizations and I go into sign-up pages, so in global settings, organization, sign-up pages, all right, and when I come into an existing sign-up page, before you won't see these settings at first. Because before you see that, you have to pick a user sign-up, and so you have to take single user sign-up, and you have to pick a user sign-up. So here, if it's set to none, you won't see that. You also have to pick your sign-up page here, and then you may have to actually fill this in and save before you see the new options, and then you'll see these options at the bottom. So try that first, and let's try it right now. Try that first, and then you should see it. If not, just give us a shout here at the support, and we'll walk you through it and make sure you get set up properly. So field change history is great. User login history too. So the question is, the addition of the enabled additional login of emulation users in field change history is great. Could this be added to the user login history too? At the moment, if you emulate someone on the live records as they have been logged in, it would be great if you could see this was an emulation rather than a user login. Yeah, that's a great idea. I'm not sure if it does that already or not. I'll have to double check that. Let me double check that and get back to you, because yeah, if you can say that one, because either if it doesn't do it already, that's a great enhancement, and I'll talk to the dev team about getting that done. So thank you for that one. But I do think it might already be done, but I'll have to double check.
Last question.
All right, last question in this chat. Regarding the Smart Check error message, we have a display text and variable field which displays a button in an activity. The content of the field has logic which points to a parent special advanced data field, data table field. The error message appears in the Smart Check error message, but there's no link to the place in the activity where the error exists. Can you suggest a way to do this and follow up with me after the webinar? Yeah, let's chat after the webinar. We'll go chat offline, or we can get someone support to give you a shout and work through that with you. I'm not sure offhand, but like I said, we'll chat after. And let's get to the rest of the questions first. So
that's actually all that we had.
Oh, that's all we had?
Yep, that's all the questions we had.
Oh, okay.
Wasn't that enough for you?
Those are really good questions, though. All right, well, if there's no more questions, is anything Q&A?
Nope, those were the Q&A ones.
Oh, okay.
But so as we mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, this is being recorded, and after I clean up the recording a little bit, I will upload it to YouTube, and I'll make the link available to everybody. So if there's anything that you missed, then you can go back and rewatch the recording. Of course, as we mentioned before, there are also the release notes in the wiki page as well. So if there are no other questions, then I guess we'll end things right there. Thank you very much for joining us today, and we will chat soon. Take care.
Have a great day.